She bought a company that fired her. Imagine that. Dr. Marie Cosgrove is a guest on my podcast today, The Hidden Genius, sharing her story. Marie is a full-time keynote speaker, author, and creator of the Build to Rise framework. She works with teams, leaders, organizations, and entrepreneurs, helping them turn their biggest setbacks into greatest opportunities. Now, that message is rooted in her story that we're going to unpack today, the greatness, or what I call the hidden genius behind her story. So I'm so honored to welcome Marie. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you, Anna, for inviting me to be a guest on your show.
Yes, this is going to be great. Thank you, Marie. Tell us, who is Marie behind all your impressive titles and successful track record?
My primary role is as a mom. I'm a mom of five, four boys and one girl. They're all big, and I just have my 16-year-old left at home. So I'm very proud of all of my kids. I'm also a grandmother of four. My
What? You're
oldest,
way
how
too
old are you?
young for that.
Yeah, my oldest is 32 and he's got three kids. And then he's married, and my daughter, she's married as well and has one daughter. She's also an entrepreneur and has a beauty spa. And my son is an executive at a company. He does classical piano. Justin, he's not married. And then I have another son, Isaiah. He's a sergeant in the army, and he is in South Korea. So he's heading to Germany right now. I think at the end of this month, he'll be stationed in Germany. And then I have my 16-year-old.
Wow.
So that is my primary, definitely are my kids. And aside from that is I am very entrepreneurial. I dabble in a lot of different projects in healthcare primarily. I started because in my consulting, I also do a lot of other things. And one of the newest projects that's really cool is mybotbooker.com, which is a really cool project that I just helped someone launch, and I'm just assisting with that kind of in the background and invested in that company. I get excited about
Yeah,
entrepreneurship because I know that it's small businesses that make the world go round. Without small businesses, play a big economic role in anywhere. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. I work with entrepreneurs in Africa, for example, is helping someone with a farm, and they went from an idea to 12 employees now. And it's just really beautiful to see that growth. And so that really is my passion, is entrepreneurship. How can I help small businesses grow? How can they take their ideas from concept to execution to out in the marketplace? And that's something I've done in healthcare. I got a device FDA cleared in cardiovascular. I also have been in healthcare for 25 years, bought the company that fired me, which is also in healthcare, which I just got back actually from California, speaking to a group of doctors. And it was one of our clients who utilizes the devices for the MMA fighters, UFC. They get tested for concussion, traumatic brain injury, things of that nature, and get treated. And they hired me as a keynote speaker, but also got to know me because of the work that I do. So mostly I am doing keynote speaking, but of course, as an entrepreneur, I'm always helping other entrepreneurs build their businesses.
I love that. When I asked you about who is Marie behind all those titles, you first said that you're a mom. Thank you for giving us the insight about what a wonderful mom you are, raising five beautiful children, and you're way too young to be a grandma, but there you go, another example of inspiration, and a serial entrepreneur. That's impressive. It takes a lot of imagination, creativity, and skills that you have a proven track record of to turn an idea into reality. And that's what you do. Now, I'm intrigued by your story. I actually ordered your book and I can't wait to read it. But those insights and those lessons didn't come cheap in your life. So if you would like to share some of the biggest turning points in your life, in your professional and maybe personal life, that turned you into the person you are today.
started before I was born. And it really is rooted in faith. And that I use that as part of my framework as well. I know maybe some people listening to the podcast, it's like faith. Yeah, I'm not a religious person. I really don't even believe in God. But even if you don't believe in God, you have faith. Everybody has faith. It takes faith to send an email to an employee, giving them direction to get something done and believe that they're going to get it done. When you go through the drive-through at a fast food restaurant and you place your order, you have faith, that you have trust. It's belief that they're going to deliver on what you ordered. So it's a belief system, trust. And so my faith is rooted since before I was born. My grandparents were traveling to a wedding in Mexico in 1969, and they were going through one of the most treacherous tracks known as La Espina del Diablo, the Devil's Spine. And it, even to this day, it's still a very dangerous track. They had been driving all through the night, and it started raining and thundering, and there were all the lights and signs were down. So there was no notification that there was a sharp curve. And my grandfather ended up crashing, went off the curve, and his daughter was severely impacted. Her head was completely crushed. And 24 hours later, finally someone came to render aid. In between that time period, looters stopped by to loot them. So there was no aid or assistance. When they finally got to the hospital, the doctors said that they were lucky that she was still alive, but they didn't think that she would make it much longer. And her mother, my grandmother, she said, I believe in something greater. And I want you to do surgery to stop the bleeding in her brain. And the doctor says, we don't have a surgeon here skilled enough to do the surgery. We're going to have to get someone from another hospital. By the time they get here, she's going to be dead. And if she does survive and they do the surgery, she'll be a vegetable the rest of her life. And her faith was so strong, she insisted that they bring a doctor. So they brought in a doctor, they did the surgery. She survived the surgery, but she was in a coma for 3 months. And in my book, I go more into the details, but fast forward to the day the doctor said, there is no sign of recovery. We're going to have to pull the plug. And right before they pulled the plug, she opened her eyes and she had to learn how to walk, talk, and do everything all over again. And so in that process, when she learned to walk and talk and do everything all over again, turned out she had permanent brain damage and she had to be under a lot of medication. She was able to go home, but she was never going to be the same again. And that is what has fueled my desire in healthcare, because the company that fired me, that's what they do, is they manufacture devices to diagnose and treat patients with traumatic brain injury and concussion. And we see that patients that have had that, they get better. But sometimes with their own medications, it causes schizophrenia. That's what happened to my mother. She had schizophrenia because of the medication she was on. She thought she was in another world, but what really was happening, she was like not there. And it was very scary. I ended up being like her caretaker as a child. And I grew up in that environment. But it was after the car accident, during these experiences that she's having, that she was assaulted, and that resulted in my birth. And so I was born to a mother who had serious brain damage. I had no dad, product of rape. And during those times, it was a lot worse. I was born in 1970. It tells you how old I'm old. I'm 55, but it just tells during that time period, having a child out of wedlock was looked down upon. And then in family functions, nobody knew what to do with us because people weren't comfortable with my mother because she wasn't always in her right mind. Sometimes she was, and sometimes she was in a whole other world. And I grew up thinking I was inferior because I was treated, not because, I don't think I was treated badly because on purpose. I think just people didn't know how to deal with this situation. And I know people didn't expect much from me. In fact, I remember an aunt and uncle told me that nothing's going to become of you because you can't go to college, you can't do this, you can't do that. they'll probably just end up homeless on the streets or a prostitute. And that's what I thought my life was, worthless. And then I came to realize, and for me, it was through my faith. I recognized that everybody has a different belief system, but the prefrontal cortex of the brain is responsible for belief, whether you believe, whether it's religious or not. So whether religious or not, it takes faith to believe nobody was here when the earth was created. Nobody. It takes faith to believe, yeah, Big Bang, it just happened. It also takes faith to believe in God. I believe in God. And so for me, I feel like I have value because I feel like I was created by God and for a purpose to be here in this world. But even if you don't believe in God, and even if you think, oh my goodness, there she goes with her Jesus and her God and all this stuff. Look, I respect you, whatever your belief system is, but even science has proven that you do have a purpose. And how do I know this? Like nobody has the same voice box you have. Nobody has the same eyes that you have. It's like you have, even your heart has its own print. It has its own, we can scan your heart and we can scan your heartbeat. One of the devices that I got FDA cleared for was for cardiovascular, and nobody has the same heartbeat. It's like your fingerprint. That's how unique it is. And so that just shows you your uniqueness. If you're gone today, no one will ever replace you. No one. Now, to me, that means that you have value, and every single person on this earth has value. Whether you believe you're going to be here and turn into dust and never to return again, or like me, I believe in an afterlife. I believe that I will be resurrected. But that's my belief system. And that faith has helped carry me through. And once I learned about that, I thought, wow, even though my birth certificate is blank where it says father, my God is a father to the fatherless. I do have value. I do have a purpose. And now I can walk with confidence, knowing that, yeah, I may not be the richest, the prettiest, I may not have this or that. It doesn't matter where I am in life, whether I have a setback or I'm successful, because life is not all about 100% success. If you're truly honest, when you're having when anyone who's experienced any type of success has also experienced setbacks. And I don't care how wise you get, because you can reach the top. You will have setbacks. That's just life, because we can't control the situations around us. We can't control the weather. We may have a beautiful sunny day and then a tornado comes. We can't control that. And that would be a setback if your house gets destroyed by a tornado, right? And so I really believe that it is so important for you to recognize, like you said, Anna, your genius. And I'm so glad you're doing this podcast on recognizing people's genius, because everybody has genius. Doesn't matter where you are in your point in life, whether you're experiencing huge success or you're experiencing a huge setback, you have that genius that you can tap into, and don't ever forget your genius.
Marie, I actually, at one point, I had goosebumps when you were talking. At other points, I was so deeply inspired that was coming like a warm wave from within, because you truly, your life is a testament of a true miracle. It's incredible, and you're absolutely right. When your people around you, loved ones or friends, they doubted you, they looked frowned upon you, not because they wanted to hurt you or to harm you, but because it wasn't within the societal norms how you came into this world, and yet you still preserved that kindness, that compassion, that humanity. You're a living, talking message. Your story is a talking message that you help people recognize the value in themselves, because you had to go through that journey when no one else did, when no one else believed in you. And look, this is incredible. And I wrote down as you were talking this word uniqueness that is rooted in your purpose. Everybody was created for a purpose. And when we think about it, our life is a miracle. So regardless of your beliefs in God or divinity, or it doesn't really matter, we all believe into something. We could just pick a different label, but we have that significance, and it's just conversations like that, they really inspire me. So your life already started as a battle and a breakthrough, and then you had to prove to yourself, or actually accept, give yourself permission that you had value and you had a purpose, and you connected, you found that purpose in your faith in God, because that's what carried you through in difficult moments. So what do you think you have learned, you discovered about yourself when that company you worked for? I remember the story you shared on another podcast, that your boss mocked and humiliated you and saying that your little squeaky voice is not capable of selling serious stuff. You can just sell candy stuff. Can you imagine? Honestly, it made me so angry that I was like, if he was in front of me, I would have punched him, honestly. But you went ahead and you proved him wrong, because you are not the woman to mess with in the most positive sense of the word. So tell us a little bit about the story, what you discovered about yourself when you were challenged, and what
Well,
lesson you bring to others as a result of it.
at at that time, my kids were little, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna feed my kids. I'm gonna show you. And I, at that point, I just had this like, yeah, just watch. And so it didn't matter. At this point, I remember I had become a fairly new Christian, and I was like, it doesn't matter what you say. And no, I don't have to do what you say. I know that I can do this. And I was passionate because of what my mom had gone through. So when they said you'll never make it in this industry, and Les Brown, he's a really good friend of mine, and you need to be speaking and you need voice lessons so you don't sound so squeaky like Minnie Mouse. So I did that. I did what he told me so that I don't sound like Minnie Mouse, because I did. And I don't even say it right, but anyways, I at that time, that's what they said. I got 100 on all of my tests. So what had happened is I was working a corporate job at a Fortune 100 company, and my kids had gone through horrible abuse. I just grabbed the kids, left, didn't look back. I just left everything behind. And I give more details in my book. And I had to leave this job, and I'm without a job. And I'm thinking, how am I going to support my kids? I don't know how. I can't get a job because they had been through so much trauma and so much abuse. They needed me there. I had to take them through all of their counseling and appointments. And one of my sons had autoimmune disease. So I had to take him to all his appointments. And it was just struggle after struggle. And I thought, if I get a job in sales, I can make my own way. I can make my own commission. And nobody wanted to hire me. Everybody told me you don't have a job, you don't have experience in sales. And I thought, marketing, I manage a $600 million marketing budget. I have to sell the board on how to spend their money. And I could definitely do this. And so I just had this confidence, and I think it must have come from God because I didn't used to have that kind of confidence. And I had an opportunity through a doctor's office that I knew, because I used to do freelance marketing, and I used to do this newsletter in a newspaper, a community newspaper that I used to run. And she said, you'd be really good at this. And when I talked to them, they said, you're not going to make it. You don't have experience in sales, and this is high capital equipment. You're going to be selling equipment for 35,000 to 150,000 to these physicians. And I said, just give me a chance. Let me see if I can pass your training, which I scored 100 on everything. So I thought, yes, I'm in. And when I saw the CEO speaking to a huge group of, well, not huge, but 40 executives, and he says, some of you did very well on the test and you're going to do very well. Some of you did well, and you're not cut out to do this job because it's a man's world. And when I looked around the room and I thought, man's world, I'm the only woman here. And so when he's walking out, I'm like, you were talking to me, weren't you? And he's, yeah, I was talking to you. And I said, I can do this. He goes, with your little girl voice, the most you will ever do is sell candy. Why don't you just go home? And I said, look, just give me straight commission. You have nothing to lose. Give me a contract. Just give me 30 days. And if I don't sell anything, then I'm not on the team. But if I sell, then I'm on the team. And then their marketing guys like, what are you going to take them to the strip club? You're going to take them hunting and fishing. You don't look like you could fish, and you don't look like you'd be going to the strip club. And I said, I don't need to do any of those things to sell. And so at that time, I just kept reminding myself, I manage a $600 million marketing budget. I worked for large companies. I did marketing work for FedEx, ADT, Sprint. These are huge companies. If I can do that, I can definitely do this. And so sometimes we forget our wins. Everybody, I don't care who you are, you've had a win. And to you, it might seem insignificant, but it is significant. And you can draw on that win to help you move forward when you feel like you're struggling, like I felt like I was struggling at that time. And I just kept remembering, because we tend to remember the most negative parts of our lives. You need to focus on the positive things in your life, the good things that have happened, and focus on that. And that's what I was doing at that time. And I said, I can definitely do this. They gave me the contract. They laughed. And unfortunately, when I got back home, my grandfather, who was a big part of my life, was diagnosed with leukemia. And I knew I had 30 days. I didn't know how much time he had. So I spent my time with him at the hospital, and he ended up passing away. And I get a call 1 week before my contract was over. And they said, we're canceling your contract. And I said, no, I have 1 week left. And they just laughed, because they said there's no way that I could do anything. And within 1 week, I more than met my quota. And I made it into the sales. And then they couldn't understand, why is she doing so well? She's exceeding in everybody's quota. She's the national top sales representative in the whole nation. And it was, what was driving me was my mom. When I would hear a neurologist contact me and say, hey, we had this patient, and this patient could not even walk. They're walking now. Or this patient had serious mental health issues, and they're not on any medication anymore, because we work on their cognition. And so that was driving me, and that fueled me. And so when you're looking, and I don't know who may be listening to this, but if you're looking and you're thinking, what's my place in this world? What can I do? And we've all heard this. John Maxwell talks about it. A lot of speakers talk about it. What is your why? What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? That is so true. And we tend to look at, what are the trends? What's popular? What's this person doing? Maybe I need to go and do what the trend is, or I need to go do this because it's popular, or this person's got successful doing this, I'll go do that. No, what is it that you are gifted with that will give you that spark and that drive to do well, whatever job that you're doing? And I believe that there is no job insignificant. In no job, if you are working, you are making a difference in other people's lives. And one of the ways that you can do this is you can write yourself a list. What are things that you are good at? What makes you smile when you're making that list? And don't compare it to anybody else's list or what anybody else is doing. What is it that gives you that spark? What is it that makes you happy? And you draw on that, and you can work on that, and you'll be successful if you're working on the things that make you happy.
Maria, I can see how you bring the stand innovation to all the rooms and conferences that where you speak at. It's just that inspiration is oozing from you. I just honestly, like, I can listen to you all the time. If only you could be in my ear when I'm having my moments. Oh, everybody's ear. Like you, there is so much that you said here, that your life success really is dependent, totally reliant on your relationship with your why. Because if you are deeply aligned with your purpose, with why you do what you do, with what brings you to life, what creates a sparkle, you can overcome any obstacle. This is what allowed you to sell that highly expensive medical equipment in a man's world without lap dancing and going to strip clubs to in a week, because that mission mattered to you because it was deeply rooted in your heart and your soul. Do you mind me asking if your mom is still with us?
Yeah, she passed away 16 years ago,
Oh, okay.
but she lived a long life. She passed away when she was 61. They didn't expect her to live that long. So it
Mm.
is a miracle she lived that long. And she mellowed out during later ages and
Yeah.
later age and was a lot of fun and everything. So yeah, I got to enjoy my mom.
Good, good. Yeah, she did a great job raising you despite all the challenges that she faced and you faced growing up. So I know we can talk a lot about because your story and your message and your genius is fascinating. And I could literally see so many threads that your genius is linked to because you've been a serial entrepreneur and you're an expert in so many different areas. But if you were to summarize it, what is the biggest impact you bring to the people you work with? In other words, how do you change the world, their world, in the context of what you do?
So I share a framework called Build to Rise, and it's built on resiliency and just not as a theory, but actually how to apply it in your life. Because I believe that I know the word, I feel like the word resilience is so overused today, but I have this framework that I believe is essential for people to carry that through, that gives you the tools to be able to take some of these ideas and put them into action in your daily life. So, for example, when I spoke at a small minority business association in Ohio, I just spoke with the one of the attendees who happens to be on the board, and she said, "You spoke a month ago. People are still talking about your talk, and I'm still implementing what you gave me." And one of those things was, how do you process your no's? We did an activity. And how can you turn that no into an advantage? And how can you use this no to propel you? And in this situation, it was with government contracts because all these small businesses, what they do is they work with government entities and they get a lot of no's with the government entities. But how can you turn that around and turn it into a yes? And how can you turn this into a positive experience? And so I gave them the roadmap and the blueprint to do this. And so she says, and it's working for me. I did this contract, and she ended up telling them no and turned it around to her advantage, where they came back asking her, begging her to please. They wanted her to do the work. So that's where I get my satisfaction in seeing other people succeed,
Mm.
because it is, I believe personally, that the more people that we help, we are contributing to society. And the more people, just like you're doing with your podcast, so you're using this as a launch pad to help other people and to guide them to find their success, to find their genius.
Love that. The major theme in your life and it's your message, it's your genius is resilience because you have
Yes.
lived it. But like you said, Marie, there are so many people who talk about resilience. It's a very hijacked word these days that in most people it doesn't really mean anything except for a nice value to have to put in your board. But you have lived it. So how would you define your genius? What difference do you bring to this common topic, resilience, if that is the core of the proposition or the offering that you bring to the people you work with?
So the difference is my experience is a lived experience. So it's just not theory. It's something that I've actually lived, that I've actually gone through, that I've actually used this model to put in place to get me to where I am today. And to get me to, I'm right now, I'm at a place of contentment where it doesn't matter what you throw at me or what happens. I know that I'm okay. And I would love people that are struggling where they feel like I can't continue anymore to be able to take this and embrace it, and for them to realize, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You do have that genius. You do have that spark. And so that's the key difference, is that I've lived it. So it's not just a theory. It's something that I've actually studied, that actually done a lot of research. I went back to school to study psychology and get my degree in psychology. And so I I did that because I wanted to be able to help people other than just come with these ideas, things that have been studied, that do have the scientific backup to it, that it is backed up by science. It's just not a theory, and also backed up by my lived experience.
Love that. Absolutely love it. Do you have any favorite quote that you get inspired by, or what's your way of inspiring yourself?
For me is every day I start out my day is I start out with prayer, meditation for some people. For me, it's prayer with God and reading God's word to keep me centered. And I'm always asking God, hey, God, just guide my thoughts, guide my heart. If it goes into a dark place, I call out to God, hey, God, I know you created me for a purpose. Don't let me forget that. And I know your promises are that you won't let my soul slip from your hands. And I know you only want the best for me. And so I rely on that significantly because I know that man will always let you down. I don't care who it is, we're all flawed. I will let you down at some point because I'm so flawed. We're human and we're all flawed in one way or another. And so I just, for me, it's my faith in God and my trust in Him that keeps me going. And that's what I rely on.
Love that. Perfectly imperfect human. And what I love about you, Marie, that is just so real, so human. And you could have been so arrogant with your success, with your history, with what you have done, but you stay humble. You give grace to God. You love people. You bring light to this world. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you for your words. That means a lot. Thank you.
And thank you for giving us the time on my podcast, The Hidden Genius. I absolutely enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure you guys as well enjoyed our conversation because Marie is amazing, isn't she?
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. And you're amazing. And I'm so happy with the work that you're doing. It's really exciting. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.